Let's go Browns! There's been a lot going on in Cleveland, attempts to fix the team, and there's been a lot of discussion among fans on the web about whether these changes will actually have any positive effect. And we need to discuss this here, so come with me and I'll tell you everything that's going on. And at the end, I want to hear your opinion in the comments below. So make sure to hit the like button, and let's go. Okay, let's talk about what's going on with the Cleveland Browns, because this story has the entire league excited. The Browns have been making waves lately, especially after trading their star wide receiver, Amari Cooper, to the Buffalo Bills. But the surprising part? Right after making this blockbuster trade, they went and reunited with a familiar face, James Proche, who they signed to their practice squad shortly after cutting him earlier. Now, if you've been following Proche's journey, you know that this move is a bit confusing. Proche had already appeared in 4 games for the Browns this season, primarily serving as a punt returner, but he was released last Saturday. Yet here we are, just a few days later, and the Browns are bringing him back. Clearly, with Amari Cooper out, the team is desperate for someone reliable to step in at wide receiver, and they see Proche as part of the answer. But let's be real for a second. Is James Proche really the guy who can fill the void left by Cooper? I mean, Proche has 1 reception for 3 yards this season. His primary role has been returning punts, not catching passes. Sure, he could end up being promoted to the active roster later in the season, but right now, the Browns' receiving core looks shaky without their star player. And speaking of the Browns, it's hard not to talk about their biggest problem, Deshaun Watson. Boy, are the fans not happy. Despite all the changes happening around him, it seems like Watson's poor performance has been the crux of Cleveland's struggles this season. They're 1-5 with 4 straight losses, and many are pointing the finger at Watson. Browns ownership is taking a lot of heat for the way they've handled this whole situation, and it's clear that no amount of wide receiver trading can save them from the mess they've created. But let's not get carried away by all the doom and gloom. There's still some hope for Browns fans, and that hope may come in the form of Jerry Jeudy. Yes, you heard that right. Jeudy, the former Broncos wideout who the Browns traded in the offseason, is about to step up in a big way. With Cooper out, Jeudy has a huge opportunity to prove himself as Cleveland's new #1 wide receiver. Jeudy is no stranger to big moments. Drafted 15th overall by Denver in 2020, Jeudy has had a solid career thus far, with over 3,000 receiving yards and 11 touchdowns. And after receiving a 3-year, $58 million extension from the Browns, you better believe they expect him to deliver. Jeudy even said, "I always see myself as #1. Now, it's time for him to show he can step into Cooper's shoes and become Watson's go-to guy. But it's not just Jeudy who's going to have to step up. The entire Browns receiving core needs to step up. Guys like Elijah Moore, Cedric Tillman, and even practice squad players like Jaylon Darden and Kadarius Toney will all get their chance to shine. Toney, who the Browns signed in September, is still recovering from an injury, but once healthy, he could be a key piece in this revamped Browns offense. The question is, will all of these moves be enough to save the Browns season? They have a big game coming up against the Bengals, and if they want any chance of turning things around, they'll need to see some serious improvement in their passing game. Jeudy, Moore, and the rest of the receivers will need to step up. And let's not forget about Proche. While his role may be more limited now, he could end up playing a bigger role later in the season, especially if the Browns' receiving depth continues to be an issue. The Browns know they're in desperate need of playmakers and are willing to try anything at this point. Do you think Jerry Jeudy can replace Amari Cooper in Cleveland? Or is this just another example of the Browns making questionable moves? The Cleveland Browns are finally getting some good news on the injury front. After dealing with a long list of players out, the Browns are activating safety one Thornhill from the injured reserve list. Thornhill, who has been out with a calf injury, will return to practice this week, opening his 3-week window to rejoin the active roster. For those who remember Thornhill from his days with the Kansas City Chiefs, you know he's a solid player. He helped the Chiefs win 2 Super Bowls before signing with Cleveland last season. In his 6-year career, he racked up 297 tackles, 8 interceptions, and even returned one of those picks for a touchdown in 2019. Not bad, right? Thornhill's return comes at a crucial time for the Browns, who have been battling injuries in the defensive secondary. Denzel Ward recently pulled his hamstring, and MJ Emerson is dealing with a rib injury. Having Thornhill back on the field could be a huge boost for the defense. So what do you guys think? Can Thornhill's return help turn things around for the Browns, or is it too late to save their season? Let me know what you think in the comments. There's been a lot of talk about Deshaun Watson's struggles recently, so let's take a deeper look at what's really going on with the Browns' offense and why Watson seems to be at the center of the problem. Now, if you've been watching the Browns this season, it's no secret that their offense has been one of the worst in the league. And when you have an offense that's barely hanging on, all eyes are on the quarterback. For Cleveland, that quarterback is Deshaun Watson. But let's be real, this isn't the same Watson we saw tearing it up with the Houston Texans a few years ago. Something has changed, and not for the better. Despite his performance, Watson remains the starting QB, and the big question fans and analysts continue to ask is, why hasn't head coach Kevin Stefanski benched him yet? Well, Stefanski has been pretty clear, Watson isn't going anywhere. And when you start digging deeper, the reasons become more obvious. Watson's massive $230 million guaranteed contract is tying the Browns' hands. Whether he plays well or not, Cleveland is stuck with this deal, and that's a tough pill to swallow for Browns fans. But here's the real question everyone is asking. Is there anything the Browns coaching staff can do to get Watson back to his old self? Can he be fixed, or is this just a new reality for Cleveland? Sports Illustrated's Albert Breer weighed in on this during a recent appearance on The Rich Eisen Show, and he didn't hold back. Breer believes that if it weren't for Watson's contract, he'd probably be sitting on the bench right now. Think about that for a second, $46 million in guaranteed money over the next 2 seasons. That's a huge burden for the Browns, and it's a big reason why they're doing everything they can to make it work with Watson. Breer also mentioned something interesting about how Watson responded to coaching during his time in Houston. Bill O'Brien and the Texans staff built a strong relationship with Watson, coaching him hard and pushing him to be better. And it worked back then. But the big question is, could a similar tough love approach work in Cleveland? Could Stefanski and his staff coach Watson the same way and get better results? Breer thinks that may be the only way to get the most out of him. But here's where it gets tricky. Watson's guaranteed money creates a sense of security that most players don't have. Knowing that his spot is secure no matter what might be eating away at his motivation to improve. What's the incentive to put in the work when he already has $230 million coming his way? That's the predicament the Browns find themselves in. And let's not forget that Stefanski isn't a bad coach. He's proven that he can get results when things are going right. So if there's any chance of unlocking Watson's potential, Stefanski is probably the guy to do it, but only if Watson is willing to buy in and accept the hard truths that come with tough coaching. Until that happens, though, it's hard to see the Browns' offense turning things around anytime soon. And honestly, Browns fans, watching this from the sideline makes you appreciate the situation our own team is in even more. It's a reminder that big contracts and big names don't always guarantee success on the field. So what do you think? Can Deshaun Watson turn things around in Cleveland, or is this a lost cause? Do you think tough coaching is the answer, or are the Browns stuck in a hole they can't dig themselves out of? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and while you're here, be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of the latest NFL news. Go Browns!